So you remember when they asked Dr. Fauci about natural immunity?
And just real quickly, there was a study that came out of Israel about natural immunity. And basically the headline was that natural immunity provides a lot of protection, even better than the vaccines alone. What are people to make of that? So as we talk about vaccine mandates, I get calls all the time. People say, I've already had COVID. I'm protected. And now the study says maybe even more protected than the vaccine alone. Should they also get the vaccine? How do you make the case to them?
You know, that's a really good point, Sanjay. I don't have a really firm answer for you on that. That's something that we're going to have to discuss regarding the durability of the response. The one thing the paper from Israel didn't tell you is whether or not, as high as the protection is with natural infection, what's the durability compared to the durability of a vaccine. So it is conceivable that you got infected, you're protected, but you may not be protected for an indefinite period of time. So I think that is something that we need to sit down and discuss seriously, because you very appropriately pointed out it is an issue, and there could be an argument for saying what you said.
There could be. No, I'm going to... That was from September 2021. I'm going to say that Dr. Sanjay Gupta is... Dr. Fauci is lying, and that he always knew. And well, here's what cares Kim Iverson. Remember when they had to sue to get the FDA to release the vaccine trial data? They weren't going to release the vaccine trial data for 75 years. And I wonder why that is. What did the vaccine trial data contain? It contained this.
The first bombshell in the document is that natural immunity works and Pfizer knows it. The clinical trial data showed those with previous infection of COVID had no difference in outcome than those vaccinated. In the limited trial, none of the vaccinated nor those with previous infection resulted in severe disease defined by either the FDA or the CDC. They were broken up into two different groups. The FDA and the CDC define severe COVID slightly differently. The CDC roughly defines it as anyone needing hospitalization, whereas the FDA defines it as anyone needing supplemental oxygen. Either way, there were 0 cases of severe COVID in the natural immunity group, whether they were vaccinated or not. And their own data also showed that natural immunity was statistically identical to the vaccine against infection. That's what their data showed. Yet, rather than say people with natural immunity don't seem to need the vaccine, which is what they've been saying in Europe, for example, Pfizer instead spun their conclusion and said, quote, final efficacy results show that the vaccine provided protection against COVID-19 in participants with or without evidence of prior infection with SARS-CoV-2.
So why do I tell you that? Well, because there's a new article out about when they all got together and decided to say this bullshit. So inside the secret government meetings on COVID-19 and natural immunity, this is an article from February 2nd of this year. 4 of the highest ranking U.S. health officials, including Dr. Fauci, met in secret to discuss whether or not natural immune people should be exempt from getting COVID-19 vaccines. The officials brought in 4 outside experts to discuss whether the protection gained after recovering from COVID-19, known as natural immunity, a thing your body's done since the beginning of time, should count as 1 or more vaccine doses. There was interest in several people in the administration in hearing basically the opinions of 4 immunologists in terms of what we thought about natural infection as contributing to protection against moderate to severe illness, and to what extent that should influence dosing. Who said that? Dr. Paul Offit, one of the experts. So he's saying that they really only wanted to hear from 4 immunologists. And what do you think all those 4 people thought alike? You think they all were telling the big pharma line? Yes, but it gets more interesting. The discussion did not lead to a change in U.S. vaccination policy, which has never acknowledged post-infection protection. It's never acknowledged natural immunity. That's what they're saying. Fauci and the other U.S. officials who heard from the experts have repeatedly downplayed that natural protection, claiming that it is inferior to vaccine-bestowed immunity. Most studies on the subject indicate the opposite, and they always have. The meeting held in October 2021 was briefly discussed before on a podcast. I'm talking about natural immunity. It was always accepted that natural immunity gave you greater protection. That before. So Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, a professor of medicine at Stanford University who's been on this show, who did not participate in that meeting, criticized how such a consequential discussion took place behind closed doors with only a few people present. It was really impactful. It was a really impactful decision that they made in private with a very small number of people involved, and they reached the wrong decision. So here's the email. Here's the people who were from the government. Fauci was there. Dr. Vivek Murthy, that's the U.S. Surgeon General at the time. Rochelle Walensky, the head of the CDC. Dr. Francis Collins, that bitch liar from the NIH. And Dr. Bechara Kocher, the White House vaccine coordinator. Then the other four people was that guy, Paul Offit, and then Dr. Michael Osterholm, Aiko Awasaki, and Dr. Peter Hotez.
Yes, I was hoping he would be. I was hoping we talked to Fatty McBowtie.
Yes. So during the meeting, Offit put forth his position that natural immunity should count as 2 doses of a vaccine. At the time, the CDC recommended 3. A 2-dose primary series and a booster for many Americans 18 and older, soon expanding that advice to all adults, even though trials of the boosters only analyzed immunogenicity and of efficacy among those without evidence of prior infection. So what they're saying is they never really checked to see how good the natural immunity was that people had. Research indicated that natural immunity was long-lasting and superior to vaccination. On the other hand, the CDC published a paper in its quasi-journal that concluded vaccination was better.
By Peter Hotez.
I bet. Osterholm sided with Offit, but thought that having recovered from COVID-19 should only count as a single dose. I added my voice at the meeting to count as an infection as equivalent to a dose of vaccine. I've always believed hybrid immunity likely provides the most protection, he told us. Hybrid immunity refers to getting a vaccine after you got COVID and then recovered. So if you got COVID, now you have natural immunity, then you also get a vaccine on top of it, like my friend Paul Gilmartin did, then that gives you a hybrid immunity. That's the theory. Some papers have found vaccination after recovery boosts antibodies, which are believed to be a correlate to protection. Other research has shown that the natural immune have a higher risk of side effects than those who haven't recovered from infection. Some experts believe the risk is worth the benefit, but other experts don't. Hotez and Awasaki, though the biggest psychopath working in vaccination today is this guy Hotez. He is a psychopathic liar. And I don't know this guy, but it turns out he's just like him, I bet. So those two guys made the case that natural immunity should not count as any dose. Turning science on its head, by the way. As has been the case in virtually the entire United States since COVID-19 vaccines were first rolled out. Isn't that something? Awasaki referred to a British preprint, not peer-reviewed, study, and soon after published in Nature that concluded, based on a survey data, that the protection from the Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines was heightened among people with evidence of prior infection. So they're grasping at straws, trying to find everything that bolsters their stupid idea. She also noted a study she worked on that found the natural immune had higher antibody titers, or I don't know what that is, than the vaccinated, but that the vaccinated reached comparable levels of neutralization response to the ancestral strain after the second vaccine dose. The researchers also discovered T cells, thought to protect against severe illness, were boosted by vaccination. There is a clear benefit to boosting regardless of prior infection, Awasaki, who has since received more than $2 million in grants from the NIH, told participants at the meeting in an email. Hotez received a $789,000 in grants from the NIH in fiscal year 2020 alone, and has received other grants totaling millions in previous years. Offit, who co-invented the rotavirus vaccine, received $3.5 million in grants from the NIH in 1985 through 2004. Hotez declined to be interviewed.
And reported us to Homeland Security.
Yeah. Awasaki didn't even respond to their request for comment. I wonder why these two guys...
Oh, because they're naturally immune to questions?
I guess they're naturally immune to questions. No participants represented experts like Bhattacharya, who say that the naturally immune generally don't need any doses at all. So they never heard from someone like him. So they cherry picked the specialists. They did it in private, and they came up with the wrong idea. Why? Because they didn't care about the science. In public, Hotez repeatedly portrayed natural immunity as worse than vaccination.
I'm sure it isn't him.
Yeah. Including citing the widely criticized CDC paper, which drew from just 2 months of testing in a single state. In one post on Twitter on October 29, 2021, Hotez referred to another CDC study which concluded that the naturally immune were 5 times as likely to test positive compared to vaccinated people with no prior infection. That same day, the CDC issued a science brief that detailed the agency's position on natural immunity versus protection from vaccines. The brief, which had never been updated, says that available evidence shows both the vaccinated and naturally immune have a low risk of subsequent infection for at least 6 months, but that the body of evidence for infection-induced immunity is more limited than that for vaccine-induced immunity. That seems like a lie. Several months later, the CDC acknowledged that natural immunity was superior to vaccination against the Delta variant. Oh, that's because it was.
Then they later said it wasn't working. We got to get a new, better one.
Got to get a new, better one. The CDC, which has made misleading representations before on the evidence supporting vaccination of the naturally immune, did not respond to a request for or comment regarding whether the agency will ever update the brief. Probably not. Offit has been the leading critic on the Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, which advises U.S. regulators on vaccines over their authorizations of COVID-19 boosters. Offit has said boosters are unnecessary for the young and healthy because they don't add much to the primary series. He also criticized regulators for authorizing updated shots without consulting the committee and absent clinical data.
Data schmata.
We have been lied to on such an astronomical level, your brains can't even comprehend it. 2 of the top U.S. Food and Drug Administrators officially resigned over the booster push. We've reported that many times at this show. Nobody else in corporate media will report that. That the 2 heads of the vaccine department that were there for 30 years at the FDA resigned over the boosters.
Sam Harris used it as an absurd example because he literally didn't know because he's an idiot. Because imagine if you heard 2 of the, I think he said 12 of the people from the FDA resigned over the vaccine. Now, of course, that didn't happen. But what if it had?
But 2 people did. The heads of the vaccine department.
He don't know.
He doesn't even know that.
He's an idiot. He used it as imagine if this crazy thing happened.
Look at this. No FDA officials were listed on invitations to the secret meeting on natural immunity. I wonder why. You
can't afford them resigning right now.
That's right. Fauci and Walensky, she's the head of the CDC, 2 of the most visible U.S. health officials during the pandemic, repeatedly downplayed natural immunity. Fauci said in an email in March 2020 that he assumed there would be substantial immunity post-infection. That's what he said before the pandemic started, that he predicted there would be substantial immunity from natural immunity. That's what his position was then. Just like when he said masks don't work. Remember that? Well, then he flipped everything. He would later say that natural immunity was real, but that the durability was uncertain. He noted that the studies finding higher antibody levels from hybrid immunity. Of course he did. It's September of 21, months after claiming that vaccinated people can feel safe that they are not going to get infected. Fauci said that he did not have a real firm answer on whether the natural immune should get vaccinated. I played you that. I don't have to read it. After the meeting, Fauci would say that natural immunity and vaccine-bestowed immunity both wane, and that people should get vaccinated regardless of prior infection to boost their protection. Walensky hyped the CDC study on natural immunity in August 2021 and the second study in October 2021. But when the third paper came out concluding natural immunity was superior, she didn't even issue a statement.
She said Russia has to lose.
Do you see what's happening with your health policy? Do you see that this is coming straight from Big Pharma and it's all about profit and these people are corrupt, criminal liars? Criminal liars of the highest order.
They do see, but I think because they, like I said, they always know the Oxycontin documentary and every other kind of thing. They always are talking about it.
The greatest crime of the century.
Yeah, and so they do see, but I think people take this and go, no, the actual government, now that the right people are there, Democrats, they would never allow it to be like that because they're the good ones and they're watching over, they're regulating this.
They're regulating it.
Even though they didn't make insulin cheap or do any of the things they're supposed to do, this one they wouldn't screw up.
Walensky later told a blog that the study found natural immunity provided strong protection, perhaps even more so than those who had been vaccinated and not yet boosted.
Not even a vlog? A blog.
A blog, yeah.
Not even in the Independent American?
Murtha and Collins also portrayed natural immunity as inferior. From the studies about natural immunity, we are seeing more and more data that tells us that while you get some protection from natural infection, it's not nearly as strong as what you get from the vaccine, he told CNN 2 months before the meeting. Collins, in a series of Dr. Collins, the head of the NIH, in a series of blog posts, highlighted the studies showing higher antibody levels after vaccination and urged people to get vaccinated. He also voiced support for vaccine mandates. So the damage that these people have done to the trust that people have in their health professionals and the health agencies is irreparable, I think.
Yeah. Luckily, it's a great vaccine that slows the spread, and you should get it.
Oh,
that part at least is okay.
But my heart swells with pride.
Yeah, but the part that's sad is a bunch of people don't trust them anymore because they change their answers every other day.
And they're lying.
Yeah.
It's not only that they change their answers, it's that they change their answers because they've been lying.
Yeah. And it becomes real obvious. And it's not like people super trusted everything before. They already kind of suspected.
And can you believe there's still people out there wagging their finger at people like me?
Yeah. They got
calling us anti-vax. Isn't it amazing?
They make their money. I got a good friend that was talking to me, and he wasn't talking about you, he was talking about somebody else, but he goes, somebody who I knew was very leftist, and he goes, hey, he's like some kind of right-wing conspiracy theory. I go, what? Why? He goes, well, I mean, look, I travel all the world for business. I got to get the boosters. I'm like, that's a very interesting answer. So he said something, you didn't want to think you're stupid, and also you had to do it for your job because you're making a lot of money. So it can't be, it has to be that it's
just
a conspiracy.
right-wing bullshit.
Otherwise, I've been just shooting this crap into myself.
That's right.
And I won't be able to enjoy my money if it goes bad.
That's right. That's right. Otherwise, they're an idiot. Either I have to be a crazy, grifting right-winger, or they're an idiot.
Yeah, keep in mind, these are people that are such like germaphobes that they're like, that there's like vape smoke.
That's right. I know. People afraid of GMOs. They won't eat an apple.
Right.
Because it was genetically modified.
But
they're not even going to ask what's in the vaccine.
Because if they found out,
they're going to ask you what you cook the fucking salmon in, if it was line caught or what. But they won't ask what's inside their vaccine.
No, it's none of my business. I don't want to know. It's like hot dogs. I don't want to know what they put in there. The pink slime, I don't need to know about it. If I can't taste it, it ain't there.
Hey, everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy. We're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Nashville, Northampton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, New York, Cohost, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, and Washington, D.C. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.